Oh, the intro. Cobb Trading Company presents. We'll talk more about that later, maybe. Here I am driving the bus home. This was the majority of what I did in 2021. I got the bus. I wanted the bus. I love the idea of a bus. Something I can take the family out. We can play around with. Maybe fulfill my need of wanting classic junk. You know, I enjoyed working on it. It was a lot of headache. My wife says it cost me several months of my life, just me being a poo-poo head. But I kind of enjoyed it. Problem with a vintage bus, you got to have money if you want to maintain it. Parts availability is ridiculous on that, trying to find stuff. A muffler, for example, non-existent. I ended up straight piping it, which it sounded loud and borderline obnoxious, but it worked. Mirrors took forever to try to find a mirror. I never actually found one that was priced at the price point that I wanted to get. When I got this thing, it was a seated coach. As far as I know, shortly before buying it, it was still being used to haul Amish between here, Pennsylvania, and Florida, I think it was. I actually know the whole history on this bus. It was a Greyhound bus for the first 10 years of its life. The second 10 years, it belonged to a company, I think, out of New Jersey. And then for another 17 years after that, it actually belonged to a local church gospel group, I guess. A good customer of ours was the mechanic that worked at this shop. So I actually called him when I was looking at it to, find the history on it. When I got it, it had a lot of electrical problems. It worked fine, somewhat, when I picked it up, but the more I drove it, the more issues I had. It took longer to gut this thing and tear it down than it did to actually build it back up. Just kind of some random pictures here. It was definitely old and dated. I ended up taking sawzalls to cut all the overhead luggage racks out. It was hot. This was probably mid-July, I'm assuming. Definite sweatbox. One thing I liked about this was the way the windows opened. They all opened 90 degrees, give or take. I tell you, the front of that bus was something that I always fought with. I'd actually pulled this out and put it back in and built cabinets up there and undid cabinets up there, and actually went up and saw Chris Newton to get another one of these front caps to get it back to stock, which is how I ended up leaving it when I sold it. And that's how I liked it the most. Pardon the squeakiness of the chair. Jackson was a pretty big help. Actually, looking at him here, he's grown up a lot since this video. This is back in the summer. Amazing how quick they grow up. This thing was so nasty. I actually, once I got it all cleaned up, just decided to pressure wash the whole thing out. It was a big day painting it. The previous owner was supposed to paint the church name over when he got it, and he never did. actually use tractor paint on this. International Harvester cream which is actually, they call it white, but it's technically a cream, and then an international red on it. I really liked that color scheme. You know, this bus build brought me some 100 subscribers or so, if I remember correctly. I think I was at maybe 420, 430, 450, somewhere around that, and got up as much as almost 580, if I'm not mistaken. Several left, you know, when I sold this thing. I mean, understandably so, I guess, if you're following a channel for a particular thing, and then they decide to get rid of it. I can understand unsubscribing. It actually took several coats of that paint to get everything coated. In this video, I'm actually painting the nose down, pretty much the whole body line, all the way around the front was painted. I actually hated it and ended up going back and taking it back down to the stainless. I don't think I ever showed this video clip here in any of my videos, but I actually completely rewired this bus and converted it to 12 volt. A lot of corrosion. I don't understand how the wiring was so corroded and stuff, but the frame and everything seemed alright. I kept part of the factory harness, I think, that ran all the way to the back, and something that ran left to right. You know, you never know down the road when you might need an extra wire or something down there. I actually ended up, the only thing I didn't rewire was, I think, the fuel tank, the sending unit for the fuel tank. Everything else had been done. I think I spent 2 or 3 months getting this thing ready before I even truly started to convert it. Which is fine when you buy a project, you know. I wonder what I was listening to. I actually gutted everything HVAC wise from the inside. I don't recall exactly what it was, but I think I was maybe down to 23,000 pounds when I started the conversion. Maybe 23.5. That was pretty much completely gutted. But I'd even gotten rid of the 8D batteries. I'd actually switched everything to group 31. I didn't need that much battery with the 12 volt system. funny working on the thing because it was all what is it, the standard nuts and bolts, no metric on this. This was early on in the build. I actually ended up getting rid of about half these cabinets and the dinette on the left. When we used this last Memorial Day, I actually had the dinette set up, and it was kind of nice to lay down, you know, just relaxing. But my biggest problem with the bus, man, it was just crowded. I mean, ridiculously crowded. 4 people and 4 dogs. That's that front cabinet I talked about earlier that I put in and took out and took out and put in and rebuilt and redesigned and ended up completely getting rid of it. I did build it with a ton of cabinet space that first time around. Ah, the toilet. Maybe the main reason why I like RVs. Spoiler alert, if you haven't watched the video on this, I went with the one my left hand's on there. I had the residential toilet in there for the first part, which I was fine with. I really liked it. But when I redid, after Gary wrecked his bus, I redid a lot of stuff on the inside of mine and I actually wanted a little bit smaller footprint. The RV style toilet, you know, obviously is a lot smaller. Not so much bowl size, but there's no tank or anything on it, so I can tuck it in the corner a little bit better. That toilet was pretty much brand new, maybe a year old, but it leaked when I put it in the bus. Not outside, but the seal on the inside leaked. I'm assuming it got glass in it, and it had scarred up the, I guess, the valve, the little part that slides over the gasket, so it never did hold water. You know, most of these clips in this video here are in my playlist for the MCI. I tell you, I wouldn't suggest a bus to anybody unless if you've got, you know, swollen pockets. Man, that thing, even mine, you know, 2 million mile bus that was 41 years old, man, that thing drove like a dream. It was just as smooth as can be, you know, no rattling, no nothing. Hell, the Fleetwood I'm in now, all kinds of noises going on when you're driving and making corners and all that stuff. These countertops and cabinets, and actually the fridge, all that was out of Gary's bus. They were scratched up, but I still liked them. I was giving them a good coat of tung oil here. This was with the newer cabinets that I had redone. These cabinets were also out of Gary's bus, but I added a co-pilot seat in there. That was the same one he had in his bus. I gotten rid of the dinette. I'd actually had just the couch in there. We never used it in this form, so I really don't know how it would have worked. I had enough room so that I could put a recliner or something else in there. There would have been enough seating for 4. But I tell you, just with the dogs, they just take up so much room. It was definitely a pretty countertop. Gary did a hell of a job picking that out.